Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Andres, and today I'll be talking about Berserk's Holy Evil War chapter. This is the first half, essentially, basically first half of the Millennium Falcon arc. Previously, we saw Griffith come back in the Tower of Conviction arc, and we're kind of now dealing with the ramifications and the effects of that. So yeah, let's jump into it. So we start off this arc with Guts and Casca. They're reunited. They're returning to Godot and Rickard's home. That's where Casca was hiding before she ran away. But it turns out Godot has passed away, sadly, who's the blacksmith and who made Guts' really sick sword and a lot of his weapons. We find out from Rickard that Griffith is there, and Guts tries to attack him. He's enraged by everything that's going on. He doesn't understand what's happening. But Nosferatu Sod comes in and protects Griffith from Guts. Rickard, who mind you, he was part of the Band of the Hawks, the original one. He's confused by everything going on since he didn't really see what Griffith did during the eclipse. Guts never told him about it. I guess he was just trying to save him from the pain that he's been suffering this whole time. We find out Griffith he feels free of guilt. He has no feelings towards Guts and Casca and what he did. He basically came here to test this on himself. But the infant, we see the infant is part of him because, as we saw in the previous arc, the apostle egg fused with the infant, and the what was happening in the Tower of Conviction made that egg turn into Griffith with the infant inside. So the infant, Casca and Guts baby, still seems to have some influence over Griffith and his body. So that still gives him like moments of hesitation, it seems. But Griffith ends up leaving with Sod right after saying he'll essentially continue his dream of creating his own kingdom. Probably it's not just going to be a small kingdom now, and it's essentially going to be the world, it seems like. Guts ends up deciding to go with Casca to the elf homeland where Puck is from, since there Casca would be protected from like the demonic attacks that the brand of sacrifice gives her and Guts. And they end up leaving Rickard there. He just is confused about everything going on and doesn't know how to feel. So I kind of feel pity for him, but it's probably best for him to stay there given the horrible journey that Guts has been through. Griffith later on ends up attacking Kushan troops, who are basically ruling over Midland at this point and have kidnapped the princess. During this fight, legendary characters from all over randomly join in to help him eliminate the Kushans. Griffith is forming essentially a new band of hawks with apostles and demons helping him out. Later, we go back to Serpico and Lady Farnese. We end up getting a really big backstory dump of Serpico's childhood as well as Lady Farnese because their lives are intertwined. We find out that he is the son of a noble and a maid. He was poor his entire life. His father, he didn't know his father, obviously, because noble maid relationship. He was just casted away with his mom, and his mom is really ill, so she hasn't been able to get a job and work. Later on in his childhood, Lady Farnese finds him and takes him in as a servant. We learn Lady Farnese lives a pretty lonely life because her mother and father don't really care about her. She likes to burn animals that don't like her, and even tried to burn a maid before. So a lot of the maids from like her estate are really afraid of her. The only one that still sticks with him is Serpico, who kind of grows in like endearment of her and sees her as like kind of like a reject, I would say, where she's just kind of a caged animal that has not really been given any care of love. I guess he relates in some level because his mom just expects him to keep on working and pushing himself, and he hasn't had a father, so he's been alone for all of his life too. During this time, Serpico also finds out he is in fact the son of Lady Farnese's father. So they're siblings, or I guess half siblings. Lady Farnese ends up joining the Holy Chain Knights as their maiden because her father tried to marry her off once she became a teen, she really didn't want to and had like a spiral where she tried to burn the whole estate. She just got sent to a convent and became the maiden for the Holy Chain Knights. And Serpico follows her footsteps and just becomes a knight there as well. But they end up having to burn Serpico's mother in a really messed up moment because she was in a sanitarium. She was left in a sanitarium because, her condition kept deteriorating. And she's deemed a heretic because, this is very much similar to real life where in the medieval times, if you had schizophrenia, had very bad nervous breakdowns, maybe had seizures or any of that kind of stuff, people would deem you like a heretic or that you were possessed. So that's probably why Serpico's mother was put up, and Serpico had to make the choice. Lady Farnese pushed him to do it, to burn his own mother, and I guess let go of his past in a way. Yeah, their relationship as a whole is really interesting. I mean, they're half siblings. Lady Farnese does not know, at least as far as I've read so far. Serpico, it just seems like a relationship made out of, like, born out of misery. Misery loves company. I guess they're both miserable people. Serpico has some kind of like romantic interest towards Lady Farnese in a lot of ways. Just sees her as this like damaged figure that he wants to keep protecting. So it's a compelling, relationship, pretty complex relationship, and feels very, very human despite the half sibling stuff. But it's the medieval times, so I guess it is what it is. But yeah, we go back to Guts. He keeps having nightmares and second thoughts about having Casca around. It's just them two originally and Puck. There's a part of him that's portrayed as this like dog that we've seen in the past, that's kind of like his physical, like a manifestation of his rage and his like the darkness inside of him, and it keeps trying to push him to do bad things and to like use her as an excuse to seek revenge out towards Griffith, like dispose of her because she's like holding you down. And we get that in these really horrible looking depictions of violence towards Casca that go through Guts' mind. So Guts ends up deciding to allow Isidro, Serpico, and Lady Farnese to join his crew because I guess he's afraid that the demons of him will come out and he'll end up hurting Casca. Casca already is afraid of him given what she's seen him do to other people for the most part. And most people are afraid of Guts, right? These are the only crazy people that seek to follow him. They end up going through now as like a gang through a forest with like a troll infestation. They end up meeting a man called Morgan, who's having issues in this forest that's infested by trolls. Apparently, these trolls have been attacking his village consistently for like recent times. They also end up meeting a witch and her apprentice, Shirk, I don't know what's her name, but she also has an elf like Puck. We get a huge exposition dump from the witch, who her name is Flora, I think. Essentially what she explains is that there's kind of three planes of existence that are connected to each other. There's the physical, our plane, or their plane, the astral, and the ideal. The astral plane is, I guess, where like beings like trolls, demons, these demonic beings that haunt Guts at night. And the Godhead, I think, also lives in the astral/ideal world. It's all kind of stacked, I think, on top of each other. Like at the lowest levels, the physical, and then as you go up, there's like a middle point that's called the interstice, which is where Guts and Casca live because they have the brand of sacrifice. So this is like a middle point between the astral and the physical world. And above the astral world is the ideal world, which is, I guess, where ideal ideas live, and ideas are formed that then come more into physical fruition, I guess, from the top down to the astral and the physical world is my interpretation of things so far. And it seems like before there was more connection between the astral and the physical world, with the astral world, beings from the astral world being protectors of the peoples of the physical world, from like these like trolls and other beings in the astral world. But it seems like the Holy See have kind of shaped most people's perspective on the world now and has kind of standardized it. And now this has made regular people to be able to see less of the astral being, so they can, and we see that later on when they go to the Enoch village, where there used to be a shrine for a water elemental that's from the astral world, but now it's been replaced with a church for the Holy See. So it seems like the Holy See, maybe we'll find out later on that this is being done on purpose and there might be some like darker intentions, but so far it seems like, yeah, they kind of standardized things and kind of removed a lot of the pagan practice of like worshiping elemental beings and fairies and stuff. And that's why most regular people aren't able to see fairies in the real world anymore as well. We also learned that the Behelit cannot be used willingly to summon like the god hand. It will be each Behelit has a respectful owner that is gonna use it at the right time. I guess it has to be specific circumstances for it to happen. But yeah, the witch Flora gives them magical weapons to Isidro, Lady Farnese, and Serpico, and gives a charm to Guts and to Casca to ward off like demons for a few nights, essentially from like the mark of sacrifice always being hunted by them. And in exchange, she wants them to kill off this troll infestation that's been terrorizing the people from these villages around the forest. And she makes Shirka go with them. Shirka at this point just becomes a permanent member of the crew and is a really endearing character. We learn more about her as the story goes on. Not really much of her backstory, but more of the kind of person she is. She is very useful for them, and she also is very mature for her age, which I really appreciate. And as they leave, we find out her the witch's oracle is the Skull Knight. So that's interesting, and we learn a little bit more about it later on. But our heroes end up returning to the village that's been attacked by trolls, Enoch village, that's Morgan's village, and they're met with animosity from the people and the priest from the Holy See, because they see Shirka as as a heretic, as a pagan. She's dressed literally as a witch. The trolls do end up attacking again, and the people of the village go into hiding in the church while our heroes try to protect them. Other astral kind of like fable creatures, a kelpie and an ogre, join in with the trolls, and Guts decides to take care of the ogre, while Serpico, with his new wind sylph powers, decides to take care of the kelpie. And Shirka allows a water spirit to inhabit her body so she can use those powers to eliminate most of the enemies. And she basically just causes a huge flood to go through and kill most of the trolls. And yeah, they're successful in defending the village, but the trolls end up taking Casca and Farnese, so they have to chase them to their lair. As they're going to the lair, Shirka realizes that they're no longer in like physical world, but they're in Cliffoth, which is the dark part of the astral world. So it seems that with the arrival of Griffith, it has made kind of like the physical world and the astral world to start uniting into one. And that makes sense. That's why we see the trolls come and attack the village. It's not like an apostle, as we've seen before, causing this. It's just that the worlds are fusing, or the planes of existence, I guess, are fusing. Guts and Shirka and everyone ends up coming into the troll cave, and we see some horrible, terrible scenes of what the trolls do with the women from the village that they end up kidnapping. I am not gonna go into detail about it. That shit has given me nightmares for the past few days since I read that chapter or those chapters. I need some bleach in my mind to get rid of it. And I honestly, these are the parts that I really piss me off about Berserk, because I love Berserk so far as a whole. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But I just think about like, oh man, I want to recommend this to some people. And it's like, having these parts, I already am like, well, I don't know. Like, if I recommend it, like, I have to be selective to who I recommend this stuff with, because for some people, I don't know. I would have to say it's too much, it's getting to a point where this reminds me of a movie called Dogville, I think, or Dogtown. It's a movie with Nicole Kidman. And in that movie, Nicole Kidman goes through really horrible things that a village does to her. And in the beginning, at least for me, I felt disgusted with what was going on. But after some point, it's like I can't even take this seriously because it's so outlandish and it's so mean and disgusting. And I haven't reached that point. This was still disgusting and horrible, but I am just concerned that I will reach that point where like it's just too much and I just can't take it seriously anymore because it's just too much. But that's my one critique I think about Berserk as a whole, which I mean that's not the worst thing to say. But yeah, Guts ends up fending off like successfully the trolls and getting a lot of the women to from the village to start escaping with everyone else. As everyone's leaving, he's stopped by Slan, one of the God Hand, and that's like the female figure from the God Hand. That's very much like a sexual figure, like a temptress, very akin to if you've watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which obviously came out later. But anyway, if you watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood or read it, you know there's lust. So very much akin to the lust from a Brotherhood. She kind of tries to tempt him to unleash his rage, but Skull Knight comes in and stops it from happening. And Guts and Skull Knight end up defeating this kind of form of hers that's made actually out of troll guts. And they get to run away alongside everyone else from Cliffoth. Oh, and also Skull Knight shows us his sick-ass sword that is made of Behelis to fight the evils, I guess, of the God Hand. And while our heroes are heading back to the Witch's Lair, I guess Skull Knight, he has Sonic the Hedgehog speed. He's already there at the Witch's Flora's Lair. And they're talking about Guts, and they are talking about giving Guts the Berserker armor. Skull Knight apparently used to own this armor, and he expresses hesitancy, but the witch tells him that they're not bound to commit the same mistakes that they did in their time. Then apostles from the Band of the Hawk end up attacking the witch's lair. Sod and Skull Knight duke it out as usual, I guess at this point. They're just bound to be in these like infinite cycle of fighting between them two. Guts is still battered from the previous encounter. Slan, the God Hand, didn't leave physical scars, but left more so like spiritual scars inside him. He ends up starting fighting against an apostle from the Band of the Hawk called Grumbuild. He has like a I don't know, he seems like he was drawn in the Dark Swordsman arc, honestly. He looks like a Dark Swordsman arc enemy, and his later form is pretty funny to me. Guts ends up getting his ass kicked. Grunbeld is kind of like, oh, I thought you were going to be like way stronger, but you know, he is injured. Shirkit ends up bringing the Berserker armor to Guts as her master's like last request. He puts it on and he no longer feels pain, but his body is being drained of like blood by the armor as he's fighting. The armor makes like his emotions and his rage grow greater and greater, and it starts to consume him more than usual. It also bites into his body to like reinforce his limbs, but it also like it's literally like puncturing skin. But he no longer cares about any potential injuries, about holding back, and he just starts fighting in a very animalistic style. And he ends up kicking Grumbuild's ass completely. He even turns into his true apostle form, like demonic form, and he looks like an armadillo, but it doesn't matter. Guts is still going in. All of his friends are kind of scared of everything going on because they see that he's not himself at this point, although he looks so fucking sick in that armor. Shirka has to go into kind of like an astral form and to reach his psyche and make him stop his rage because it's going to kill him. And Flora the Witch uses her last remaining powers to turn, I guess, into a fire elemental and fend off the apostles, which gives an opening to our heroes to escape from from the witch's lair. And now we go back to the capital of Midland, which is called Windham, and it's been completely taken over by the Kushan Empire. They have like demonic half men, half beasts patrolling around in like this fog that's just looming around the whole area. We meet finally the Emperor of Kushan, who they call the Dread Emperor, Ganishka, and he's in the capital himself, overseeing everything that's going on. He tells Princess Charlotte that he wants her to bear his children, so that way he has a claim to the Midland throne. But before we go any further, the Band of the Hawk, the new Band of the Hawk, arrive and attack the Windham Castle and Ganishka. We find out that Ganishka is an apostle, and that apparently all apostles are supposed to bend to the will of Griffith. However, Ganishka opposes Griffith and wants to take a spot as ruler of the world. And Ganishka unleashes his demon soldiers and shows us his like true apostle form, which is kind of like this sick, big fog head. I like Ganishka's appearance a lot. I think he looks really cool, even though he's much like Morgus from the Tower of Conviction arc. He just seems like an evil, evil man with no redeeming qualities. But he still looks pretty sick despite being so despicable. But we find out this is all part of Griffith's plan, and this is all distraction so that Griffith and Nosferatu Sod can steal away Princess Charlotte. And that's where we end off on the Holy Evil War chapter. Obviously, there's a second chapter that I'll talk about in my next video, but yeah, so far I am really, really enjoying what's been going on in this arc. It's built up a lot more of the world, giving us much needed lore dumps that to me start to put more pieces into place as to how this like the more ethereal stuff works. Obviously, I'm not the kind of person that wants I'm not into the nitty gritty and knowing exactly. I'm okay with a very high level explanation as long as there's not really any clear kind of like missing pieces that make no sense. For me, everything seems to be making sense. I've liked the explanation so far of these like planes of existence. But yeah, I'm really liking a lot of this lore. As well as I like where Guts is going. He's seems to be changing a lot again as a person. You know, he's gone through ups and downs, and he's going through up again. He seems to be maturing more and being more pacific, being more like understanding of people, and being more willing to get help. So he really is maturing as a character. His relationship with Shirke is such a nice like father-son relationship. He seems to be so understanding. Even with Isidro, the stuff he says, he always seems to validate and want to like uplift everyone in his band, which is honestly not what I expected Guts to be like. I thought he was still going to be kind of a brat, but he's shown so much progression, and it feels natural given what he's been through and given what he's had to learn about not leaving Casca behind. And you know, he can't do it all. He needs friends in his life. He needs to open up, you know, despite what he's seen in the past with the Band of the Hawk. And I also love this juxtaposition with seeing Griffith forming his new Band of the Hawk and not being. I appreciate that it's not like an evil like Band of the Hawk. Like, yeah, there's demons and apostles, but we get a lot of humanization of a lot of the individuals in this Band of the Hawk. It just really makes me think that at some point we're all gonna come to a head. My head probably, like, maybe I'm speculating too far in, but I essentially feel like we'll probably see Griffith keep growing and become emperor and so on, and we'll see Guts have his small group grow as well, and they will end up clashing, and ideals will end up clashing between them, because Griffith also seems out of like in another level, you know, like a god figure. He doesn't seem humanized at this point, especially with everyone else in his group. Whereas in Guts' group, he is very down to earth and is willing to go down to that level with people and help them out. Obviously, we know Femto, Griffith, they have a connection. They're, I would say, the same person to some degree, just in different planes. So there's that. Obviously, that plays a part into why Griffith is this way. But I am really excited to see what's going on. I had no idea this is where the story was going. It just feels like we're going in kind of like a circle. Guts started out being, hardened by all the horrible things that happened to him as a child. And then he grew when he was in the Band of Hawks, became more human, more likable. He had a group within the Band of Hawks that he was leader of, and they saw him as a leader and as a friend, and he grew softer. Then the stuff happened with the eclipse, and he was scarred, and he went through all that trauma. And he went back to that child self that he was before going into the Band of the Hawk, where he just wanted to be alone, take out everything on the evils of this world. And he's kind of like not regressing, but going back into this maturity of like accepting people again and learning that you need to depend on others to some degree, and you need to uplift others as well so they can be better and you can make the world a better place. So maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but this is the stuff I connect with more than like the ethereal stuff. The human aspect to me always matters the most in any story, and it's really hitting for me. Guts as a character is brilliant. He feels so multidimensional, and I can't wait to see what happens next in the next chapter. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about the Holy Evil War chapter. Let me know if I missed something or if I'm misinterpreting anything. Bye.